Hey, and welcome to the Lean Nation on Ustream. And we're back after this Thanksgiving holiday, and you know we have a lot to be really thankful for because we live in a country of such innovation, such creativity, and the opportunity. Think about the opportunity here in the U.S. Unlike any other country in the world, the opportunity is endless and boundless. So I hope that everybody out in the Lean Nation had a great holiday for Thanksgiving. We have some great holiday seasons coming up, and today we have in the studio with us a really good friend to the Lean Nation, was on the Lean Nation radio show with us before, Jerry Bussell. Jerry Bussell has been an influence with Medtronics, and if anybody gets the AME write-ups and SME, I mean Medtronics posted their last quarter earnings were through the roof from what they had. Jerry was going to bring that in, but they attribute a lot of that to their lean efforts and cutting out waste and looking at continuously improving things. Also, Jerry, your title there, you were a
Well, I was Vice President of Global Operations for a number of years, and then the year before I retired from Medtronic, I was Vice President of Operational Excellence.
Yeah, and now you've taken on another career. You're retired.
Right. I retired for about a week, and then I was approached by Underwriters Laboratories, who has been on their lean journey for about 7 years, and they thought they could fulfill their mission even better of making the world a safer place by taking what they were learning with their customers and others, particularly in the healthcare field, and offer an advisory service to help other people really to further continuously improve their business.
Yeah, and they have the brand. UL has the brand.
Yeah.
But anyway, I wanted to welcome you to the Lean Nation. I have my notes here, and you're working with UL. Plus, you have your own kind of coaching and really collaborating organization that you're doing on your own as well.
Yeah, well, I have my own organization, Bussell Lean Associates, and it's really just a way to kind of target CEOs and executive staffs and help them to see the value in adopting a lean transformation strategy and to find a better way to connect them into it. I mean, one of the things you hear often is, well, the guys at the top, they don't get it or they're not involved. And so what I like to do is to try to help to do a good job in terms of explaining to them and getting them more engaged in lean journeys for their organizations.
Yeah, and you and I were talking with Linda from the Vibration Nation team here at VIBCO before we went on air, and we were trying to really figure out what how to help CEOs. And you know, when you're at the top of your game, and I thought about this a little bit while you were talking about it, and the beauty with Bussell is it Bussell Lean or Bussell Associates?
Well, it's Bussell Lean Associates. Yeah.
Bussell Lean Associates.
Right.
Is that if you can get one-on-one FaceTime with CEOs, COOs, CFOs, the top guy, gal, is that you have a lot of credibility behind you. And I think that CEO, president, leader types are afraid of asking the wrong questions to somebody that may go out and say, hey, this guy doesn't know anything.
Sure.
You know, they have to have a really comfortable environment to say, what does this really look like? Because it's so, it's tangible as heck, but it's so counterintuitive to what they've been trained in business schools or command and control that they need a one-on-one, like a coach.
Yeah, I think so. And I think one of the things is there's plenty there are enough people like myself that have actually done this.
Yep.
And so, you know, I'm amongst that group, but if you've stuck with it for a long period of time and you've had some success in working with your organizations, they look at that and that gives you some credibility.
Exactly.
And their fear is they've heard all the war stories of people that have brought in groups to help them, and it hasn't been successful. So if you're in a position where you have success as a leader in an organization, and we had some pretty good success when I was with Medtronic Surgical Technologies Division, and we did it over 12 years, and we stuck with it, and it drove a lot of value. Well, that gives you that credibility with the CEO. And I think that they want to understand how this will work within their business. And so it's really that integrative thinking, trying to get them to see how lean is really an enabling strategy for their business, and that it isn't a program, it has to be integrated into their other strategies, and to try to help to paint a picture for them 3 years out. If they did adopt this approach and they did bring this into their organization, What are the benefits? Can you show them a tangible picture of how this could really propel and accelerate their business, both the top line and the bottom line?
Yeah, and I think the unique thing with Bussell Lean Associates is that you're not there selling them a whole portfolio of stuff. You're selling them coaching. Yeah. You're actually, and from knowing Jerry for all these years, you're looking for friendships and trust and to help guide people through this and help them with the questions, because they can go find consultants to do the SMEDs, do the OEEs. You're there. You want to work with the top guy, get to the profound questions and understanding. Is that kind of what I'm...
Well, that's what I want to do, and I think there's other people. I'm not just pushing what I'm doing, but I think that's a real need, and that's why I decided to get involved in this. But it's really to get in there, ask them the right questions and all that, and really get to the point of why do they want to do this, and show them that they can do this, and that create that kind of overall understanding and teach them how to fish. As a CEO, teach them how to fish, and then insist that the people under them learn how to fish. This isn't, I think a lot of people have made this a lot more complicated than it is, and I kind of look at it, it's starting off with what Jim Womack said, helping us see the whole. Step back, get up about 30,000 feet up in the air and say, how does their business look? And where are the issues within the business? And then drill down and say, okay, let's do some strategy deployment. What are my strategies, and how can Lean help to enable this? And then get them down to the next level on an A3 and say, okay, now based on this whole having a strategy deployment, how do I go and solve these issues in a very systematic fashion? So I think trying to get the organization so that they show respect for people, and the whole idea is to get everyone, everywhere, every day doing this.
Right.
And so I think getting them to understand what's in it for them, the CEO, and why they'll have to approach it differently. I think one other point that I think is really key that I learned from Toyota was they really embedded into their HR system. So they use this as a developmental opportunity for people, and they actually say, there's some teeth to this. We will expect you as a leader that you will get competent in these areas. And, it's not that the belt approach isn't good in certain situations, but I really feel from a TPS standpoint, you really want to get to the point where you're reinforcing that you're serving people, and so that they're developing the skills and competencies, so that once they've worked in a continuous improvement role as a change agent, they go back into their other areas of the business, and they become the leaders in the organization. But I think really embedding it into the whole development through the HR and their individual development plans to have these competencies is really critical to make it successful in an organization.
Yeah, and that brings you to the next chapter, working with UL. That I said is the brand. I mean, they're a brand all over the globe.
Yeah, and I think that when everything happened pretty quick, the CEO of that company is a fellow by the name of Keith Williams. He was a mentor and somebody that really I looked up to at Medtronic. And when we were the pioneers of doing Lean, he really came in and looked at it. He was my boss's boss's boss. So he was very high in the organization. And he came in and he said, wow, this is sensational. He went back to the senior leadership at Medtronic and said, we really have to get this going. And he started having people come to Jacksonville, even though we were neophytes, and say, this is good stuff, and had us start training and developing people. So Keith was really the guy at the executive level that really took continuous improvement and really got it so it was something that was driven through the corporation. Keith left Medtronic about 7 years ago, and there was a huge challenge to go to UL, which was a company that wasn't doing all that well. And Keith came in as part of his turnaround strategy where he said Lean was the language of change, and we're going to focus on the customer.
Well, you create a lot
leadership.
of thinkers. With Lean, you create a lot of thinkers.
Absolutely.
The problem's not just one person's problem, it's everybody's, and everybody's challenged.
Yeah, and there are an awful lot of good Lean leaders. I can think of a number of them. People like John Toussaint, but Keith would be in that category because he's a very humble guy. He's the guy that takes the blame. He challenged his organization that it's about serving people, and in a 7-year period has really done a terrific job in terms of moving his organization through that. So there are leaders out there like him, and I think you see the power of it when you have an individual like that can do that.
So we have a question from the audience.
Okay.
This is high tech now. This is a question from the audience. What are the right questions to ask a COO to get him on board, him or her on board? So we're kind of pre-jumping, but what are some of the right questions?
Well, first of all, is to try to understand their strategy. I mean, look at it from their perspective. What are they trying to accomplish in their business? What do they think are some of the big barriers? Because I think instead of coming in and saying, well, lean can do this and that, it's finding out how using a lean strategy as an enabling strategy, how can that help them achieve their objectives? I think often is getting more specific is what are the big pain points in your business?
Mm-hmm.
What are the things that keep you up at night? And then trying to understand that and trying to show them that if they take an approach systematically and apply lean thinking correctly to the business, that they can address those issues. But overall is how will lean help them hit their business objectives, and how will it help them to solve some of the problems within their organization?
So it's a good statement. And you know, the business schools, you've been traveling around to some of the business schools, and your wife's in academia for younger blossoming entrepreneurs. The schools aren't set up to teach. They teach people right and wrong answers, and lean isn't right and wrong answers. Lean is a little bit of experimentation and collaboration, and being able to tell a larger group of people, this is our constraint. How do we get over it? How do we get moving?
I think one of the big things, and I was with Jim Womack recently, and he was talking about this. You know, he said, I went to all the best schools, but quite frankly, I wasn't learning the right things in the schools.
Yeah.
It's when I went out and I really understood that and had felt that I had some skills in looking at processes and understanding that everything is a process.
Yeah.
And, you know, as Jim said, you know, we take good people and we put them in bad processes, and eventually we turn them into bad people.
Yeah.
You know, we put them in the wrong environment. So I think it's really that whole ability, that process thinking, and being able to go and find out what's going on. I think that you have to engage with people. You know, you have to look at things unemotionally, and if you're really going to understand stuff. And a lot of times people will take information from other people instead of going and seeing. And I think from a CEO's standpoint is asking questions in a non-threatening, to really try to understand, to try to get to the heart of issues is really key. But I think the whole issue of, and some people don't like it, but it's servant leadership. It's really a people-centric way of looking at things. If you put people first and you show respect for them, you will get their hearts and you will get their minds, and they will feel that you care about them, and you truly do. Once you demonstrate that, then people react completely different. You know, I mean, the whole saying, people don't care what you say until they know that you really care about them. And I think that's the key, is really just demonstrate through your behaviors, not through what you say, that you care, and that they're an important part of the business. And I think that separates at least some CEOs that I've seen that have really been successful.
You had the fortunate opportunity to grow up in Long Island with a couple of parents that gave you all these proverbs and wise tales, you know. They're like, you know, be good to others and they'll be good to you, you know, and don't say things that are hurtful. And so many times, and just people's experience of growing up, unfortunately, they don't learn this stuff or go out and see. You know, don't tell me about it. Give me some. That's an opinion. Give me some facts.
Well, as you know, I always use this. My dad always would say when I would complain about people not getting it, or how difficult things were, he always would say to me, you know, Jerry, listen, tell your troubles to Jesus. He's the only one who cares. Exactly. Go get the results, but do it in the right way.
Yeah.
And I think that's the whole thing. I think a lot of the business schools and people come out and it's all about the results. It's just as important about how you get those results if you want to sustain them. And that's the one thing about lean thinking that is just unbelievable.
Yeah.
If you do it properly and you put the right processes in place and you go back and make sure that these systems and processes, it's very sustainable. And I was just reading the book that Jim Collins just did, which is really terrific. Mm-hmm. It's Great by Choice, and he talks about how certain companies have really been successful during these very tumultuous economic times. And it seems when I'm reading about that, it's that healthy paranoia, you know, around productivity and the discipline. Well, lean fits into that, and I really think that lean is that big X factor or differentiators for business, because you're constantly looking at what's going on and how whether your processes or whether your systems are working, and you're engaging everybody in it, and you're trusting people. You're teaching them how to fish, and you're trusting them, and saying that this is what we're trying to accomplish. This is our purpose, and we need your help to achieve it.
So, the companies are really trying to keep up with the customer expectations, and they're trying to stay ahead of the competition by just staying sharp all the time.
Well, I think one of the issues that I don't want to get on my soapbox, but I will since
go
I'm
ahead,
here.
Go ahead.
But I think that one of the things that Jim Womack has pointed out, and I heard him talk about this, and it really resonated for me, is who's the customer? In a lot of organizations, the customer could be the CEO in some people's minds. In many siloed organizations, the customer becomes the VP of that area. That's not the customer. If you're going to drive value horizontally, the real customer is the person that we're supposed to be providing the product and services. And if you can get your organization to say we're focusing on the customer, not the customer, internal customer, or VP, and you're looking at a common customer and you're trying to get everybody focused and aligned to that customer's needs, it helps to create the right type of thinking and focuses people and are aligned about driving value in the right areas.
Well, and I'm going to go back to your Medtronics, because I've heard you talk a lot about your experiences there.
Right.
And, just our experiences here at our company, VIBCO, it's driving to everybody from the office to the factory floor throughout the whole organization is a daily mantra about who are we working for. Talking about the customers,
right.
Giving names to the customers, giving wants, sharing expectations, sharing when we do good things, sharing when we do bad things. But you, again, also at that place, it's not a 6-week program. It's not an 8-week. This is a lifelong journey. And you did a smart thing like we're doing. You're bringing customers in. So many times these factories and organizations don't ever really see the face of the customer and get to showcase what they're doing to help improve and listen to that voice.
Yeah, I think that's really critical. I think one of the things that was a huge advantage at Medtronic, I feel very blessed to have worked for that corporation. It was just so enriching because they have this very powerful mission: alleviate pain, restore health, and extend life. Who can't get excited about that when every 4 seconds somebody's alive or living a great, better life because of the products? So we really try to center people around that, and that's the purpose. And that really differentiates organizations, I think, great organizations, and organizations that can do lean well. They talk about the purpose. Who are they serving? And it's very clear in Medtronic they're serving the customer. So I'm saying with this awesome responsibility to serve the customers and so many people dependent, what better way is there to do that or enable that than to use lean thinking?
Right.
To constantly strive for perfection, to constantly improve, to look at what really adds value to that customer. Yeah. So to me, and I find the same thing at UL, and I guess that's what attracted me to them. They have a situation where their mission is to make the world a safer place. Well, that's a very powerful way of engaging people in the purpose.
We have an active day today. We have another question, online question from one of our viewers. Another question: what are the behaviors and values that you look for in employees and leaders who can carry out servant leadership? Is there a certain set of values or a certain set of things that you can pinpoint that these people will do it?
I think one of the most critical things that has to happen up front is, the individual has to have integrity. And I really break integrity down, and I think I got this from Ken Blanchard. Over the years you assimilate information.
There's a lot of organizations now that the integrity, and people are questioning it. Integrity is key.
Yeah, well, and if you look at it, to really be a good leader, I think a lean leader, it's fundamental is, first of all, integrity is about telling the truth to yourself. So you have to have somebody around you who's going to be completely honest, whether it's your wife, whether it's a couple. I had a couple of people that worked with me at Medtronic, that they would tell me the things I didn't want to hear, but I needed to hear about myself when I wasn't doing things or consistent. So you need to be honest. You got to look yourself in the mirror and feel good that, I am telling the truth to myself. The second thing is honesty is all about telling the truth to everybody else.
Right.
And if you could tell the truth to yourself, but if you're not consistent, if people don't believe in you and you're not consistent and honest, they're not going to follow you. And so very key around that is if you do those two things, that's the beginning of building trust. And you demonstrate those things through your consistent behaviors. You don't talk about it. you behave in that fashion. And that builds trust. And if you look at the book Speed of Trust by Stephen Covey's son, he talks about, it's pretty appalling. I think 36% of the people in American organizations trust senior leadership. That's pretty sad. And then 34%, according to the survey in that book, trust one another. So I think what's really key is to build trust. And through your behaviors, you build that trust by being honest, and secondly, showing that you are putting people first.
Right.
That you put them first. I'm here, we're trying to continuously improve, but I'm here to serve you. And if I serve you and I give you what you need to do your job, and I create the right environment, I give you the right tools, and I allow you to exercise your minds and your thoughts, then we're going to succeed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think that's very critical for anybody who's going to be a servant leader. And quite frankly, some people don't want to operate that way.
Do you think this is part of nature or nurture?
I think
Do you think it's learned, or it's just part of your DNA?
I think people do things because it makes them feel good about themselves. I think a lot of it, people are predisposed based on how they grew up in the family setting. But if you really feel great from serving people, and you get that feeling, I think certain people can really gravitate to servant leadership.
Yeah.
I mean,
so they can pick it up later in life if they get the right environment. They can
pick it up. The right coaching, and they're working for somebody who models the right behavior.
Yep.
And then they try to emulate that behavior because they can see the benefits of being that way.
And you know, kind of a funny thing, you talk here about trust. 36% of people that work in an organization trust the leadership. It's a low number. It's a low number. It's a really low number.
It is. And
then they only trust 34% of their coworkers.
Right.
So think about now, because you're quite the historian. Think about Lincoln.
Yeah.
Think about the army and the men and the people and the women. What do you think the trust factor was there?
Well, I think,
and especially going into the battlefields where there was sure pandemonium and that your likelihood of getting killed was pretty high.
Well, as you know, I'm working on a book right now that I'm using Lincoln as an exemplar, and he was an exemplar for me as a lean leader. I saw a lot of parallels, and I could look to him. But I think what he did was, I mean, Lincoln, there's been more written about Lincoln than anybody other than Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
I mean, some over 15,000 books, I think 17,000 publications. So he's been fully vetted, and people can criticize Lincoln and they found fault in a lot of areas, but the one area they weren't able to get him on was his integrity and his honesty. That's Woodson. And what he did was, when he went out, he was very consistent in that. So when he went out and did a lot of Genshi Genbetsu, he went out to the field and he met with them. And he demonstrated through his behavior that he could be trusted. He demonstrated through his behavior with his team of rivals and that he was very consistent, that he would always do the right thing. Not do the right thing sometimes, but always do what he believed was right. And I think that's very, very important in any leader. People are looking for people that are consistent, and I think part of the lack of trust that you see that Stephen Covey's son points out is because there's inconsistency in behavior. People rationalize their behavior because of a certain situation. Well, people will say, well, if they change it and they don't go for this reason, they can rationalize it. People want to see consistency in terms of the honesty and integrity of leaders, and then they will trust them. People want to know from leaders that one, they care about them because they try to get to know who they are, and that they're committed to excellence, and that they'll always do the right thing. And I think you can talk about it, but it's demonstrating it, and that's, people really observe the way we behave very closely. When they see inconsistency, they lose trust. And I think to be a really successful lean leader, you have to really focus on being consistent and honest and truthful with people.
Predictable.
Exactly.
Predictability. And you know, with that, what do you think his percentage of confidence vote was? Probably in the high 90s, would you think?
Yeah, I would think so, yeah. I mean, one of the things with Lincoln that I also would emphasize is John Hay and John Nicolay, his secretary, said he spent 75% of his time with people.
Huge.
It's enormous.
Huge.
So he had a better understanding, 75% of his time with people. So his understanding of people, his understanding of what people's needs were, and trying to take that input and look at it, and really had a good sense of what was going on. how the attitudes were changing, what was going on with leaders, who was performing, who wasn't performing. He wasn't telling people what to do. He was trying to understand, then he would come back and suggest certain things to his generals, but also try to address the needs of people. So I know that there's, I think Doris...
Well, it's almost like fact-finding. Instead of just getting an opinion, he's listening.
But his level of empathy, I mean, Doris Kearns Goodwin wrote this in a magazine article. She said, people talk about Bill Clinton saying, "I feel your pain." He said, Lincoln was much different. He absorbed your pain. People knew that was that level of connection and concern and care, and that when he could do something and it was consistent with the right thing, he would do it right away.
So we're adding to our list here of DNA and values because now we've added empathy.
Right.
We've added empathy.
And empathy is a real deep caring. And I think I emphasized it's just not listening and giving people time. It's really connecting with people at a level that they really feel that you're tied to what they're going through, and you're going to do the best you can for them.
And the nice thing is, if leaders are empathetic with those around them, the same as in the lean culture, is they can break down a lot of barriers.
They absolutely
both personally for people to help them personally, which is a great give back for people that give so much, as well as within the organization to help them actualize what they're trying to do.
Exactly. I think when you look at the business schools, the hard skills that they teach people, I think they're pretty easy.
Yeah.
It's the soft skills that are so hard to come up. And what you do is you learn those experientially by trying things. Mm-hmm. Let's face it, as you become a leader, certain things will work, certain won't work. And you've got to constantly asking, what's the right thing to do? And do I have to change? And what's appropriate for the situation?
It's always good, though. You talked about, to get the self-reflection and have people around you that are willing to give you an insight, look in the mirror, to give you a glimpse. You always get up one step faster than trying to figure it out on your own.
Exactly.
So I attribute a lot of the things that I've learned through life and being a leader to a great team around me, great wife, and great parents that have said, you know what, you're not that special. What are you thinking? Yeah. Can you think about this? You're doing something, and a lot of times I don't want to hear it, but eventually it sits in my brain, and I'm not that high up that I can sit on a pedestal and ignore it. And you kind of mellow it out and synthesize it and adjust.
Yeah, and I think that what I like to emphasize, I think it's a Blanchardism or another quote, I think he picked this one up. He said, nice guys don't finish last. We're just running a different race. And I want to make it very clear that you can run a different race and still be very successful. But the way I found the best way to be successful and deliver exceptional results is through adopting lean thinking, not only in a manufacturing area, but throughout the whole enterprise.
Of course.
If you can leverage it through your whole enterprise, it makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, and I'm one of the leaders, and I'm a big advocate to get leaders to listen to this. And when they listen, even leaders now that haven't jumped on to TPS lean or continuous improvement, and if they were to listen to our show, they'd say, why are these guys so excited and so passionate about this? It's not until you start really experiencing this, because it's more a sense of being and doing than anything that can be taught. You got to live this, and once you live this and see the power of this, it's the most energetic piece of being alive and leading an organization of just great problem solvers, people that are engaged, people that are in alignment, and people that care.
Ellie Goldratt used the term thoughtware, and
what was that, Jay?
Thoughtware.
Thoughtware.
This is a different thoughtware, and
that's for sure.
If you think differently, but what gets us all excited is we can do things that people would say was impossible without spending a lot of money, but really engaging people and using our own creativity. And using the creativity of people. That's what gets you excited. You don't have to spend a lot of money on a big piece of equipment. Right. You don't have to spend it on information. Just by thinking differently, you can transform an organization and achieve results that other people would never, ever believe in a short period of time, as long as you would do it. So why do we get excited? Because we see what it is, what it can do to an organization. We all worked in organizations where, geez, we couldn't do this, it was so slow. If you can get people doing it, it's absolutely unbelievable what you can accomplish. So I think that's an important point, that as a leader, you can do the right thing, you can serve people, at the same time you can deliver unbelievable results. And that's why yourself and
on a bootstrap budget.
On a budget, you don't. It's
no,
not about.
It's really
it's
not
the old
even
Toyota thing. Wring the towel dry.
Yeah. And that's a beautiful thing. So you have the book we talked a little bit about.
Sure.
When is that going to be coming out?
Let me just quickly.
Because that book's kind of a unique book too.
Yeah, it really is.
You're writing. It's a little bit different.
Yeah. What I was trying to find something that would resonate with CEOs and leaders. And when I used on my lean journey, when I went to Japan, I realized that I saw something in the Toyota leaders that was very different. And all of a sudden it struck me, it seemed very much like this book, Lincoln on Leadership by Donald Phillips. So I picked it up and read it. I said, oh my goodness, look at the parallels. Look at the way Lincoln led. And so I got on this whole journey of reading more and more. And I said, you know what? There are probably over 60,000 books dealing with leadership on Amazon. It's so confusing. If I could pick one leader that I could look to, and then when I read Good to Great, Jim Collins said the perfect example of a level 5 leader is Abraham Lincoln. I said, well, maybe he's who I ought to stick to. So what I try to do, I'm going to try to do in this book, it's called Lean Leadership, What Would Abraham Lincoln Do? It'll be out next winter, is really to take 10 key behavioral traits that I believe a lean leader at the executive level, at every level in the organization ought to have, and try to make it very tangible or palpable to people through some stories. Some stories about my lean journey, how I use Lincoln as an exemplar, some very consistent ways of behavior that have stood the test of time, and then interview a number of CEOs and let them reinforce the message. Because I think the area that myself and a lot of other people, we really haven't done a great job with the CEOs. We haven't given that compelling message. So I'm hoping through the book this will be one step to try to do that.
Yeah. And it's a great thing. And now you're with UL doing some really profound things. You've assembled kind of the dream team of people that are collaborating with you guys right now.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of good people we're working with. I mean, we're doing some things in healthcare with Dr. John Toussaint and Dr. Bari in terms of ambulatory care, and we're doing some work with Shingo, and we've been doing some work also with Paul O'Neill, who was very involved in global safety. So we've been working with a lot of key people and really trying to put together a group of people that could really take the leverage that UL has, being in 43 countries around the world, and be able to accelerate this whole lean journey. Particular emphasis is obviously on healthcare. That's where UL is very passionate. And so we have some of the resources to help accelerate this whole process in healthcare. And boy, does healthcare really need it.
They sure do. They sure do. You know, and it's so much money on the table that gets left there. And, you know, Jerry, you're going to be back on the show with us when you have this, probably before this, but we're going to be in Jacksonville, too.
Yeah.
You're doing you're doing a special thing for us in the YPO Young Presidents Organization that I'm involved with. But you're also working with LEI, so you got two dance cards going.
Yeah, there's a number of things. So obviously, I was involved in founding the Jacksonville Lean Consortium, which is a community effort of about 45 companies, including the sheriff and the Chamber of Commerce and Medtronic, who's been very supportive, and Visticon and the Electric Authority. It goes on and on. Yeah. They really want to become a lean community to see how we can help. We have nonprofits, so we're all kind of strength in numbers, helping each other, and that's attracted some attention around the country, which brought the Lean Enterprise Institute to bring their summit there. So they'll be there in, I think, March 8th and 9th.
6th, 7th, and 8th. And we're going to be there 7th, 8th, and 9th.
And YPO is coming and all that. Right. And with, I guess, over 50 presidents signed up already.
And then Key Associates, which is going to be fantastic.
Which is going to be great. And then we also have the Shingo Conference, their international conference, is coming to Jacksonville. And that'll be the week of April 30th. And we have some awesome CEOs. We have about 6 CEOs. I know Keith Williams is going to be speaking from UL. Bob Chapman out of Barry Weinmiller, who's just an awesome leader. and has a great message about people-centered. He's going to be speaking, and a number of other CEOs, and we expect to really have a great conference in Jacksonville. We're hoping to get up to 1,000 people for that one.
It'll be good.
It'll be a lot of fun, and I think doing that just generates more interest. And so I'd encourage people to really look at either one of those conferences or both to come to Jacksonville, because we'd love to have you.
Yeah, and we'd love to go down there. So next week on the Lean Nation, we have a really great show coming up for all the listeners, and we have Jerry Wright, who's the chair of AME 2012, and we just came from Dallas AME. It was fantastic.
Awesome.
And we're going to be talking about collaboration and learning, because this is one of the key components, cornerstones to all this, collaboration and learning, right?
Yeah, and Jerry's just a great lean leader. I've known him for a number of years, and probably one of the biggest servant leaders around work that he's done with the Shingo and AMA. So
and I just met him for the first time, so I'm ready for that one.
Terrific guy.
And that's next week. And then on 12/14, we have a huge show, especially now with the budget deficit and everything else that we have going on. And that's lean in government, and especially the DOD, Department of Defense. And we have Robert Reed, who's Department Navy Director for Contract Continuous Performance Improvement, and James Allen, founder of Lean Diagnostics. I think you know James Allen.
Yeah, James.
And then Brad Jones, who's continued improvement at Toby Hanna Armory Depot, and they're in Pennsylvania. And you said they're a 6 or 7 time Shingo winner.
Yeah, great deployment of lean.
Yeah, they've done some things. They've
things.
Terrific things of turnaround time and ownership and measuring and getting better and better. They're like an Olympic team there, these guys.
Terrific.
They figure out how to do it better. So, Jerry, it was great having you today on the Lean Nation, and we wish you well.
Thank you very much, Carl, and good luck to you as well.
Yeah, we have some of your UL people coming in here. We love UL so much, we're jumping on the bandwagon to work with UL. So we love that. So I thank you for that. And that's it for the Lean Nation today. We're over and out. We'll see you next week.